Welcome to Bumps in the Night, where ghost stories aren't just entertainment, they're invitations. I'm Sarah, joined this week by the ever-curious Mary.
Hi.
And together we're kicking off episode 14, The World's Scariest Haunted Locations, Part 1. From crumbling asylums to cursed castles, we're traveling the globe to uncover the places that make even skeptics shiver. Brooke's off stretching her acting chops this week, but don't worry, she'll be back soon, and we've saved some chills for her too. So light a candle, lock the doors, and listen closely. The world is full of haunted places, and some of them are listening back. Alright, so let's transition into our first segment, which is the ever-popular What's Haunting Us This Week. Mary, how about you take it away?
Okay, so I was sick of saying the state of the world because that's been pretty much my answer this whole time. So I thought, and I'm also trying to be a little bit more positive and doing stuff and thinking about the small things. And I had a tomato plant that got like 3 tomatoes on it, and I tried one today, and it was delicious and took me right back to being a child again. And I wanted it so bad. Like it was just wonderful. So the thing that is haunting me is the idea of my childhood and the summer and the summer sun. Like I'm really excited about autumn, but I'm going to miss the warmer weather and the fresh tomatoes for sure.
Ditto. I've been saying all week that when people are like, "Oh, it's fall, I'm so excited." I'm like, "Yeah, I am, but I wish it wasn't followed by winter."
I love fall and winter, but that warm sun is just and biting into a fresh tomato just gives you that sun like it's wonderful.
Yeah.
What about you?
Um, well, I'm going to for the third time remind people that I have a book signing coming up, and it is haunting me because I get anxious meeting new people and having to talk to people, but it's okay because then I can just be awkward and people know I'm awkward and that just is what it is. But it's going to be this episode's coming out October 8th, and the book signing is at Barnes & Noble in Wilkes-Barre on October 11th, so just a few days. So it's from 12 to 3 p.m. and it's for their Halloween Scares event. I'll be joining a lineup of authors who specialize in the dark, the spooky, and the delightfully haunted. While mine are not nearly as dark and spooky, I do have a book about voodoo, which I get, and it deals with demons and stuff, so I guess it's kind of dark and a little bit spooky.
Yeah.
But, whether you've read my books or you like a good ghost story, and you can just come and say hi. I'm always happy to chat with people about writing, podcast, or anything that goes bump in the night. So let's celebrate spooky season together and hope to see you there.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be fun.
October 11th, 12 to 3, 2025. Barnes & Noble in Wilkes-Barre.
Yes, thank you. Just in case people are listening in 2026, they're like, "Oh, hey."
Right. I know.
Show
I
up.
just say that because I've done that. Where I've been
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah.
yeah, I'll go to this thing, and then find out like, oh, I'm
It
listening
was
to the
last year.
backlogs. This is 3 years ago.
It was 4 years ago. I can't go to that now.
Right.
All right, so let's we're gonna step back in time for our next segment. Mary isn't familiar with this one because I brought this one in while I was doing my solo episodes for the last month, and I created the On This Date in Haunted History.
I love it.
So, Mary, why don't you take it from here and lead us into the fire, literally?
On October 8th, 1871, the Great Chicago Fire ignited, devastating the city and claiming hundreds of lives. The most common story blames Mrs. O'Leary's cow for kicking over a lantern. But the truth is, no one knows for sure how it started. Of course, they blame the woman.
Yeah, of course. And the cow. It's the cow's fault.
They blame the woman and their cow. What we do know is that a 3-week drought, aging wooden buildings, and strong winds turned Chicago into a tinderbox. The fire began around 8:30 p.m. and quickly spiraled out of control. It killed 300 people, destroyed over 3 square miles of the city, and left 100,000 residents homeless. Firefighters battled the blaze with everything they had, but it wasn't until the next night when the fires began to burn itself out and rain finally fell that the destruction slowed. It took several more days before the embers cooled and the city could begin to reckon with what had happened.
But of course, the fire didn't just leave behind ashes, it left behind ghosts. One of the most enduring legends is that of Father Damon, who prayed that Holy Family Church on West Roosevelt Road would be spared. Miraculously, it was. After his death in 1890, locals began reporting sightings of his ghost, still standing vigil over the church and even wandering the halls of nearby St. Ignatius School. Another chilling tale is that of a city worker who manned the tower water pumps during the fire. When flames engulfed the building, he chose to hang himself from the top floor rather than burn. To this day, people claim to see his shadow hanging in the window, flickering like a flame that never went out. And across the city, from the Prairie Avenue district to the remnants of the O'Leary property, phantom footsteps and cries are still heard. Echoes of a night when fire and fear swept through Chicago and never fully left. So yeah, that's a
Oh,
heavy story for October 8th. I don't
absolutely.
know if you were familiar with the Chicago fire
Yeah,
or very much of it.
we talked about it a little bit. I mainly learned about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire.
Oh yeah, you guys had that.
We did. Yeah, that one was a little close
That's
call.
pretty awful. So, from the scorched streets of Chicago to the lingering spirits left behind, we're going to turn up the chills for the rest of this episode. October deserves more than just pumpkin spice, though I love pumpkin spice and I will never knock it. It deserves the world's scariest haunted places. Mary's going to start us off, and trust me, these locations aren't just spooky, they're legendary.
So I'm going to start off talking about Zvikov Castle. This is in the Czech Republic, and it was built in the 13th century. It was in the municipality Zvikovské Odrady. I'm hoping I didn't butcher that too bad. Yeah, it was built on a difficult to access and steep promontory above the confluence of the Vltava and Otava rivers. It's called the King of Czech Castles, and it is built in the early Gothic style, so it's beautiful, of course. But like so many other Gothic castles, it's known for being haunted as well.
Find me a castle that's not haunted. Like, seriously.
Right, exactly. So it is known for being haunted. There's a lot of different legends surrounding it. So some of the specific legends are that a supernatural imp or a trickster spirit is said to inhabit the castle. This entity is known for playing pranks, moving objects, causing technical difficulties for filmmakers. So, in more modern times, there are films that are filmed at this castle because, of course, again, it's beautiful. And they've all noted strange technical difficulties that they can't really explain. There's also a white lady, of course, another ghost. She's known as the White Lady, and she wanders through the castle. It alarms visitors. It's a thing.
When I'm a ghost, I'm going to wear all black or red.
Right.
I'm over the white thing. I'm wearing any color but white. Pink, hot pink.
I am wearing millennial gray when I'm a ghost.
There you go. No, I think I've seen gray ladies though. That's not. I've heard of gray ladies.
Yes, I've heard of gray.
We gotta pick like a random color that we haven't seen, like green or like
Barbie pink.
Mauve, Barbie pink. I think Barbie pink I've not seen, so
no.
Maybe we'll go Barbie pink.
When I open my mouth, you're just gonna hear the tone for startup. Nobody will get it, but I will.
You've got mail.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Some other myths are about spectral dogs with burning eyes. They guard a hidden tunnel in the catacombs, which sounds really cool. I want to pet that dog, right? You know,
he's so fluffy.
He's got burning eyes, and I want to touch him.
He's gonna be so cuddly and warm.
Exactly. There's a curse of the tower. So if you sleep in the main tower, I believe it's called Ilzova Tower. I may have said that incorrectly, but it results in you dying within a year. So if you sleep there the night, within the year you die. Which,
yeah, that sounds like a easy pass for me.
Yeah. Also, like, have we done any mold remediation? Like, is there?
I was just thinking that. I was like, I wonder how much mold is in there.
Like, what's going on there? Because like a year is a while.
Yeah, but I feel like you'd have to have a lot more exposure to mold than one night. Because, like, there are people who live with, like, tons of black mold in their houses, and they just get sick, super sick, but, like, it's over time.
Right.
So, I don't know what... Maybe somebody poisons people while they're there. I don't know. I'm not sure that's how poison works either. So
Maybe the aliens planted
it's the
some,
aliens.
yeah, some nuclear stuff. I don't know.
That's got to be it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's
definitely
got to be
that's
it.
plausible.
For sure, for sure. It's the aliens. I don't believe in aliens, but for sure the
Right.
aliens.
No, I was going to say that's, that's the most pressing one. Like, oh, you're going to die within a year. I would have
Yeah, that's a
to,
bit scary.
I feel like if I stayed the night there, like if this was my Airbnb, I would stay the night and then put that in my calendar for the next year to see, like,
Check back.
check back within
Circle
a
back.
year. Yeah, we'll circle back. See how it
Close the
goes.
loop.
We'll put a pin in that. Uh, Mostly people are talking about technical problems when they talk about unexplained phenomena in the place. Animals, though, also act strangely, and so that to me says a lot because
Yeah.
I trust the
Well, I mean,
animals.
the technical problem seems to be a fairly common thing. Like we
Right.
went for our mini moon, we went to the fort at Lake George,
Hmm.
and my camera would not work properly. It just kept saying like error when I tried to take pictures with it. And mind you, I've taken pictures in all sorts of lighting with that
Right.
camera and have not had problems. But it was weird. It was very strange.
Some of the other phenomena are fires being extinguished unexpectedly,
Ooh,
which that's cool too.
yeah.
That's an interesting thing.
What if it's protecting the castle?
Right, exactly. It feels kind of spooky and cool. But yeah, the
Yeah,
strange behavior from animals is interesting. That's that's a cool tip off that I don't see often in a lot of these, so that's pretty cool.
yeah.
And then a fun fact about this is the legend of the Zvikovsky Rarazek, which is the imp. It inspired a 19th century Czech playwright to write a comedic opera about it.
Huh,
So who's doing
that's
an
fun.
opera about it? It's pretty cool. How about you? What did you find?
So I actually have a couple. I chose one that I've been to that's a bit of a distance away, and then I chose one that I have not been to but is closer to home. So I'm going to start off with the Tower of London. Kind of cliche, but I find that place to be utterly fascinating. So the Tower of London isn't just a fortress, it's a monument of betrayal, blood, and the ghosts of England's darkest chapters. One of the most horrifying stories tied to the tower is the execution of Margaret Pole, who was the Countess of Salisbury. At 67 years old, she was sentenced to death by Henry VIII, who by then was descending into paranoia and cruelty. Margaret was the last of the Plantagenets, I'm probably saying that wrong, and her royal blood made her a threat to Henry VIII, and obviously she was after the throne at 67 years old. So her son, Reginald Pole, had openly criticized Henry's break from the Catholic Church. And if I recall from the story I heard when I visited, he wasn't around, so Henry targeted Reginald's mother, as you would. But when the day came, most of the skilled executioners had been sent north to deal with uprisings, leaving Margaret to face a young, inexperienced executioner. And fun fact about executioners back then, if you were told you were going to be the executioner, you did it or you were going to be executed. Didn't matter if you had any experience doing it. You could have been nothing more than a courier, never held a sword or anything in life, but if you were told by the king you have to do that execution, you had to do that execution. There was no if, ands, or buts. So what followed was one of the most gruesome executions in Tudor history. The executioner missed his mark repeatedly. Margaret fled screaming across the scaffold, her head partially severed, as he chased her down to finish the job. And he had to finish the job, or else he would have been killed. That's the other part. Witnesses said the scene was so horrific it left a psychic scar on the tower itself. Her ghost is said to reenact that final moment, with her cries echoing through the stone walls. And that story, when I heard it the first time, just gave me absolute chills. And it probably didn't help that we had done a ghost tour, so we were there at night. It was dark, there were barely any people around, and we're like facing, Tower of London. So kind of the perfect scene to hear this and, get chills. But Margaret wasn't alone, or isn't alone, rather. The tower is crowded with spirits, so it's said to be. Anne Boleyn, Henry VIII's ill-fated second wife, was executed here in 1536. Her ghost is often seen near the Queen's house, where she spent her final days, and in the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula, where she was buried. Witnesses describe her apparition as calm, regal, and headless. She's been spotted carrying her severed head, walking silently through the corridors. Then there's Lady Jane Grey, the Nine Days' Queen, who was just 16 when she was executed in 1554. Her ghost is said to appear on the anniversary of her death, standing on the scaffold site, bathed in a pale light. And perhaps the most tragic spirits of all, were the two young princes, Edward the Fifth and his brother Richard. They were just 12 and 9 when they vanished inside the tower in 1483. Many believe they were murdered by their uncle, Richard III, to secure the throne. Their skeletons were later found beneath a staircase. Visitors report seeing two small figures in night clothes holding hands fading into the stone. Some say they whisper, others say they simply stare. And children ghosts are just the creepiest to me. It's not their fault. They didn't, choose to die at that age and wind up being children ghosts, but it's just they just give me the
Yeah.
heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It
But
evokes,
the
yeah.
tower was that?
It evokes more feeling too.
Yeah, I think that's part of it because it's tragic.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, every death is tragic, but deaths of children are especially so, and animals.
Hmm.
The Tower of London may be a tourist attraction by day, but by night it's a vault of sorrow, betrayal, and the spirits who refuse to be forgotten. Like I said, I've actually been there, both in the daylight and after dark, and let me tell you, it's super eerie when the sun's out, but at night it just takes on a whole other, other atmosphere feeling. And I mean, maybe it's because I haven't seen any other castles after dark. Most of the time I've toured during the daytime and didn't see them, once the night falls, but and it probably doesn't help that they have these lights, like projecting from inside and just gives us this eerie glow.
Right.
I didn't go inside it. We just stood outside staring up at the battlements, but you can feel it. It's just you look up there expecting to see somebody walk by a window, even though there's no one in there, and you're just like watching, waiting for it to happen. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to go to London, make sure you go by there at night because it's a it's a feeling for sure.
Yeah,
It's definitely
definitely.
give you the creeps. And when you go in the daytime, you can tour down in the dungeons, which is another whole
Oh, good.
feeling too. Yeah,
I know
especially
I'm
since
there.
people died there. People were tortured. Yeah, yeah.
I'm
It's
good.
a sad
I don't
thing,
want to
but
be in a
yeah,
dungeon.
yeah, yeah. I wanted to see it just because I'm like, when's the next time I'm gonna go
I've got
somewhere
a
where there's
natural
dungeon? Because we don't.
instinct to not go in dungeons.
You're better than me, then I guess. Maybe I have a death wish. I don't know. I also toured one of the jails when I was there, like one of the pauper jails, which
Yeah,
actually, I mean, they were horrible conditions, but people in general treated them better because, the church was actually preaching, take care of the poor, take care of the,
they were practicing
the
a
less
little bit
fortunate.
more. Yeah,
Yeah, so people were like would give them food and money,
that's nice.
which nowadays they wouldn't do that. Like
Barely.
they'd be more likely to throw stones. But that's a whole other story. So my second site is called Letchworth Village. It's in Haverstraw, New York. I wanted to do another
Ooh,
location that was a little closer to home because then, might be somewhere that people could actually get to if they're in the US. Obviously, in the UK, you can go see the Tower of London, or if you're in Europe, it's easier to get there. But from the US, it's a bit of a hike. So, Letchworth Village opened in 1911 as a residential institution for people with developmental disabilities. Now, if anybody knows me, I've basically spent my life working with people with disabilities,
mhm.
so this site and the history behind it is near and dear to me. So that's the other reason why I picked it. So at the time, it was considered progressive, which now we would consider it
Barbaric.
inhumane torture, but
Right.
yeah, it was barbaric. But it was designed to be more humane than the overcrowded asylums of the 19th century. So comparatively, it was good. But that promise faded really quickly because by the 1920s, there were reports of neglect, abuse, and overcrowding that began to surface. Residents, many of them children, were left without proper care, education, or stimulation. In the 1950s, Letchworth became infamous for unethical medical testing. The polio vaccine was tested on children here without consent. Journalists and advocates exposed the conditions in the 1970s, and the facility was finally shut down in 1996. Now that's just wild that like it stayed open that much farther after
Yep.
the 1970s. But if you know the history of all of it, it's not as surprising.
I mean,
We want to think that once the ADA came out, everything became rosy, but it
no,
it really didn't. It took a very long time for these
everything
places
is
to
still not rosy.
get shut down. Yeah, and I'm gonna touch on that in a
Yeah,
bit
I was
too.
like, it's not
Yeah,
great.
yeah. But so in terms of how it is today, the buildings are crumbling and falling apart, and nature has started to reclaim the grounds. But many people believe that something remains from its history. Paranormal investigators report disembodied voices, shadow figures, and cold spots. Some say they've heard children crying or laughter echo through the empty halls. One of the most chilling stories involves the old hospital wing. Visitors describe a heavy, oppressive energy, like being watched. Lights flicker, doors slam, and some claim to have seen apparitions in hospital gowns, staring silently from the corridors. There's even a tale of a ghostly nurse who roams the halls, checking on patients who no longer exist. And
Mm,
that's something else you have to remember about these places is the people who worked there weren't necessarily terrible. They were just, doing the best they could with what they had. Some who worked there were terrible, like doing
correct.
experiments and whatnot. But like the nurses probably for the most part really wanted to be helping and do the right thing, but they weren't getting the supports they needed.
Right.
So, when I talk about places like this, I'm not, knocking on anybody who worked there necessarily. But anyways, so honestly, Letchworth is, and many of these places that are still around are more than just haunted. They're reminders of how society once treated people with disabilities as a burden to be hidden away. And
Mm,
like I said, while we've made progress, thanks to decades of advocacy and reform, there's still we're still so far to go. Like
absolutely.
it's unbelievable how far we still need to go, and there are signs that we're starting to move backwards,
Absolutely.
like especially in this country. And there's cuts to services,
Constantly.
institutional creep, like people talking about like yeah, it's there's so much rhetoric that dehumanizes people with disabilities that's just out there, and it's frustrating. And
Yeah.
like I said, places like Letchworth should haunt us and keep us from going back. Remembering the past is how we protect the future. But we're in a society now that's constantly erasing the negative parts of the past
Yeah.
and pretending like it didn't happen so that we can easily go back without anybody caring.
Right.
So that's my soapbox message for the day.
Absolutely.
And I guess my second part of my soapbox message is if you go tour one of these, and I've said this in previous episodes, if you tour one of these institutions, do it with respect. They were people, they didn't choose to be there,
Right.
and even in prisons, like they didn't necessarily choose to be there, and they certainly didn't choose, the conditions they were there in.
Right.
And for those who believe in ghosts, they were people, and people deserve to be treated with respect, whether they're alive or they're dead. Yeah, so that's my soapbox on treating people with dignity and respect, whether they're alive or dead, and, fighting to keep services and supports that people need so that they can be fully integrated in our community.
Yeah.
So,
And it's
yep.
easy to look at these kind of places and go, oh my gosh, they were barbaric then. We would never do
Hmm.
something like that. But you think about it and you realize it's money. It's about money for a lot of
Hmm.
that. It's,
Hmm.
hey, they didn't have the
Yep.
funding to do
Yep.
XYZ. So they did what they could. And
Yep.
we face the same issues. We see funding
We
cuts.
see it with schools,
Exactly.
we see it with schools. The
Right.
classroom's too big, teachers don't have the supplies or supports they need.
Classroom's too small.
Yeah,
Oh, you
it's
mean too many
or
people in the
well, too many
class
kids.
size.
Small rooms, large amounts of children. Yeah.
Correct. I was like, what
Sorry.
schools are you
No.
at?
No, no, no. No, no, no. Like there's like 30 kids in a classroom with one teacher,
Yeah.
Like,
Plus, yeah.
and
30.
sometimes like and one of the things I've seen that's really common is if a teacher's really good, they give them all children with behavioral issues and all the
Right.
difficulties because they can handle it, and that's setting them up for failure because you stick
Absolutely.
a bunch of kids with difficulties and not even that, you're also again separating them from the quote unquote normal children, so they're
Right.
not being fully integrated.
Yeah.
So that's another soapbox for another day.
Fair enough.
I could go on and on and on,
Always.
but that's. That's just my advocate roots showing. So that's it for our main segment on the most haunted places we could find.
You got mail.
So as usual, we didn't have any listener stories in our inbox yet, so please send us them. So I took to Reddit. I found one. The person's name was deleted. I'm assuming that means they deleted their account. But I found this Reddit story about the Tower of London, which was perfect. And basically, I titled it, I went to the Tower of London and something whispered, "Help me." So I'm going to read this as if I'm the person. I am not the person. This is just what they said. So this happened when I was about 17 during an educational trip with my youth group to the actual Tower of London. We were on a guided tour, and at one point they took us down into the torture chambers, the real ones, not just a replica room. It was dim, cold, and unsettling in a way that's hard to describe. I was standing near one of the old torture devices, a rack, refurbished for display but still absolutely gruesome. As I stood there, I suddenly felt the hair on the back of my neck and arms shoot straight up. One of the people in my group noticed and started walking towards me, probably thinking I was about to faint or something. Before they reached me, I felt a distinct, gentle touch on my hand. Not like a breeze or a brush, it felt intentional. And then I heard it, a voice, clear and terrified, whispering, "Help me." The temperature dropped fast, like really fast. The whole room felt blurry, like it had lost focus. I couldn't move. I just stood there, frozen, until the tour ended and we were back upstairs. I was outside, pale and shaking, trying to roll a cigarette and trembling hands, when the tour guide came over. He looked at me and asked, "Did something happen down there?" I told him what I'd experienced. He just smiled, not in a mocking way, more like he'd heard it before, and said, "We get that a lot. Visitors, staff, it happens. Some of the staff have even asked to switch shifts to avoid going down there." He said people have reported being touched, hearing voices, even being shoved, all while standing near that same rack. And yet, out of the whole group of teenagers, I was the one who got the full blast of it. The others just noticed that I looked pale and freaked out. To this day, I have no idea why it happened to me, but I'll never forget that voice or how scared it sounded.
That makes sense.
And
Yeah,
having been down there, I can imagine that. That would be absolutely terrifying.
absolutely.
Yeah, so that's the Reddit story for the week.
Oh,
All right, what
creepy.
is your.
Creepy. Okay. I didn't find a full story, but I did find a fun little question that I think would be a fun thing to talk about. So I went on Reddit as well, and I found a post on r/ghosts by the user Matt73132.
Okay.
And they bring up a good question that I kind of touch on or talk about. And they're asking, are there active ghosts from the time of ancient Rome or farther back? Um, which is something I bring up a lot. I'm like, we talk about lots of Victorian ghosts, but
Hmm.
we're not talking about cavemen ghosts most of the
Yeah,
time,
Tudor
right?
ghosts. Yeah.
Exactly. He says, I'm curious, is there a time limit on how long a ghost will haunt a place? I'd be interested to see the ghost of a Roman centurion or gladiators in the Colosseum. And then
You know,
Sadlock592 said, where are all the caveman ghosts?
yeah.
So right on the same thing. Um,
You,
by Grabthar's Hammer says, how come we don't have ghosts from the 90s screaming, it's Britney, bitch? Which again, I bring up. I'm like, we're not hearing people from the
hmm
80s and 90s. We're hearing people from, times where it's pretty to be a
Yeah.
basically a gray lady, right? Also, to be
Yeah.
fair, the song "Give Me More" from that she says it's Britney Bitchin' is from the 2000s, but we could easily have 2000s ghosts screaming that as well.
Right. But you know
Um,
what I think about that part specifically is like probably the places that are being haunted by those types of ghosts are not the places where people are touring.
that's
Because it's
true.
probably more likely to be your house where somebody happened to kill themselves,
Yeah,
in 1998. And you may have noticed the ghost, but it's not like you're inviting people over like, "Hey, this ghost is singing Britney Spears." Like
yeah,
and I know I've had friends in the past I talked to that had, ghosts experience in their houses, and they weren't necessarily ghosts, they were more like residual, because the person I'm thinking of, his house had been in their family for quite a while, and they had reports of seeing a little boy that looked like him but it had been his father had looked like him when he was little. So it was almost like residual like energy from the father
Mhm.
there was what they were thinking because it
Mhm.
looked spitting image. So it makes me think like, okay, if you're in your house that you've had forever, or even if you're in a house that some other family lived there, you're not gonna think anything like my old house.
Right.
When my husband moved in with me, we were of course dating, not married at the time, and things were happening to him. I was like, well, maybe it's the woman who lived here before. So, and she
Right.
died in like, actually, she had died like the year before he moved in, if I remember
Okay.
correctly.
Yeah.
So, like, it makes me think they're probably there. We're just not hearing it.
That's possible. That's possible. Someone
I don't know.
on
People
this,
write in. Tell us.
yeah, I would love to know. Somebody brought up specifically for the Roman legions marching, they mentioned that a lot of the Roman soldiers that have been cited as ghosts have been from the waist up because their
Uh,
roads were lower. We built
yeah, that
over
makes
their
sense.
roads.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting
Yeah,
thing
that makes
too, is
sense.
depending on how the world has changed would affect how
Yeah.
you see those ghosts, you know.
I don't know if you I don't know if you listened to the episodes I recorded for September.
Mhm.
But I think it was either the last one or the one before that. I told a story about a little a boy, not boy, like a young man who was seen running across like a park, but the ground for the park was lower than it was back then because they had like
Uh,
dug down. So he was
so he
seen
was
running
there.
above it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are
I've heard
definitely
of
people
things
who
like
have
that
talked
before.
about
Yeah.
soldiers on a wall where there was no more wall. So the
Yep.
soldiers would be floating. Same idea. It's just,
Yeah.
that's fascinating. But that makes me think like, okay, so the least haunted place would be like the penthouse in a new high rise because nothing's been
Probably,
up
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, because I mean, even if you think about it, like my house is relatively new. It was built in like early 90s, late
Mhm.
90s, somewhere around there. But it was farmland before that.
Right.
So anybody could have died here, And even like one of the places we investigated, you weren't there. It was Brooke, Derek David, and I. We were at Curious Grounds over in Conklin.
Mhm.
It had been farmlands before, you know, it got a little more industrialized, and they had a barn fire. So a lot of the things we
Mm,
were coming across were very like fire, barn fall, like
right.
things relating to that. So it's very interesting how, it's not just the buildings that are possibly haunted, it's the locations themselves, like the
Right.
ground, the very earth. So it makes you wonder how does this energy work? Like what does it actually attach to? Is it the
Right.
dirt? Like if we dig up all the dirt, are they going to go away? It's
Right.
just
And if it's so
it's interesting.
haunted in places where people have lived, but then they've been buried
Hmm.
elsewhere, why are they
Hmm.
haunting that and not the cemetery, for instance? Um,
My thought on that would be like I wouldn't want to haunt where my body is. I would want to haunt where I was
where
comfortable,
I
where
was
I lived.
typically at.
But I don't
Right.
know if you get a choice to choose that. But like I don't
Right.
know how, you know, if I
And
die and find a way to come back and tell you, I'll let you know.
good.
I don't know how that works. We'll do a Houdini thing. You'll give me a word and I'll tell you that word if I
That sounds
make it
awesome.
back from the other side.
Yeah. I'll just have a strange typewriter in an abandoned room for you.
Yep, I'll work on that. Yep.
Get your typing
But
on.
yeah, no, and my thought about like the like, where are the cavemen ghosts is I wonder if, especially let's say it's a site like, Tower of London. There was stuff there before the Tower of London was built, right?
Right.
And there's so much history in that one particular location. How much energy can a place really hold? Like if you keep
Right.
dumping more and more and more, does it wind up burying what was originally there? Or
Yeah.
does the energy fade out? That's
Yeah,
it's an interesting thought.
it is.
I
Oh,
like that question.
yeah. It's an excellent question. And it's one that I like to think
Where
about
did
too.
all the cavemen go?
Well, and yeah, where did all the 80s, you know, ladies in their,
Rockers, yeah.
where did all the rockers go? Where did all the 80s
Where did all the rockers
in
go?
there, like nobody says, "Oh, I
Yeah.
saw a ghost with giant shoulder pads." You know what I mean? Like they're seeing
Yeah.
a Victorian dress. They're
Where'd all
not
the
seeing
hippies
like
go?
a
Yeah.
cute 80s outfit. They're not seeing big
Yeah.
hair, right? She
Yeah.
had teased out hair. That's not something that we typically hear of.
I feel like maybe for an episode in November, we need to like do a deep dive and see if we can find some like
That would be
more
cool.
modern
Yes,
ghost stories because they've got to be out there.
absolutely.
Yeah, so write in, people, if you have stories. If you've seen a
Definitely.
caveman ghost. All right. So, did you have any more
No, I don't have
on
any
that?
haunted news either.
Okay, so that was dives us into our haunted news section. So, since you don't have any, I did find one, and I felt like it was fairly fitting for this time of year, because I know, and probably too late to plan for your October getaways this year, but you could look for next year,
Mhm.
because I can speak for myself. It's really fun to go somewhere that's supposedly haunted for, you know, the October month. So I found an article that was talking about, where like the spookiest places you can get away to in
Mhm.
October. And one of them, it was on USA Today. They had a 10 best Reader's Choice rankings for 2025, and they named number 7. I don't know why they started with number 7, but I guess they must have just been talking about Savannah or whatever. But it's in Savannah, Georgia. It's called the Marshall
Mhm.
House, and they put it as number 7. It was built in 1851, and the Marshall House served as a Union hospital during the Civil War. And its ghost stories are super, super rich, and just as rich as its history is. Guests have reported faucets turning on by themselves, bones discovered beneath the
Oh,
floorboards, and the kind of eerie energy that makes you want to sleep with one eye
yes.
open. um, yeah. So it also, went through and listed some other
Nice.
places, and I can I've been to two of the places on the list, and it was near one of them. I didn't actually get there, but Faint and Go Island Inn in
Mhm.
Nichols, New York. I've actually stayed there, and I highly recommend checking it out. It's funny because that one wasn't even on the radar like probably like 20 years ago, and then all of a sudden it popped up as being super super haunted. It's something I've talked to other local ghost investigators about, and we're kind of like, where the heck did this come
Right,
from? Um, but possibly maybe it was just a private residence, and then they opened
right.
it up, and that's how. But it was really cool. We had some interesting experiences for sure. The next one on the list is the 1886 Crescent Hotel and Spa, which is in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Then the Queen Mary in Long Beach, California. I was near there, didn't go there, but I wanted to. I didn't have time. Farnsworth House Inn in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I've been there, I didn't stay there, but I saw it. The Alaskan Hotel and Bar in Juneau, Alaska. Hotel del Coronado in Coronado, California. The Marshall House, which was that one. The Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. Lemp Mansion Restaurant and Inn in St. Louis, Missouri. I feel like we talked about that one. And then also Hotel Saranac in Saranac Lake, New York.
Yes.
So yeah, if you're wanting to chase stories or just hear some good stories, you check out these places. And if you stayed in any of them or you're planning on staying in them, and you have anything happen, please send us your stories. We like
I'd
ghost
love to hear
stories. I
about
want
them.
to hear them.
Yeah.
Yeah, please send them.
I wonder,
I feel like that's our bi-weekly plea.
yeah, I wonder if you stayed at the Hotel Saranac while drinking Saranac soda, uh, if they would come more likely or less likely to you.
We
The
could
ghosts
try.
were there.
We plan a trip and try.
I mean, they
See what
make good Shirley
happens.
Temple. What can I
For sure. And I'm kind of sad and happy that they didn't include Salem, because I feel like Salem is such like a
say? It is.
cliche option. But I'm sad about it because that was like one of the best trips we took that had probably the weirdest. I guess not weird, but it was like further proof that if you're gonna have a ghost experience, it doesn't have to happen at
Right.
night. But yeah, so that was kind of cool place. And like I said, when we went to Lake
Hmm.
George, we had some experiences in the fort there, which was kind of interesting because it's not the original fort. The fort actually
Hmm.
burned down. It's a recreation of it. So it's kind of interesting that things happened there too. But yeah, traveling for ghost things is fun. I like it. I highly recommend it.
I'm sure. That's a wrap on this episode of Bumps in the Night Ghosts, Ghouls, and Hauntings. Thanks for spending some time with us in the shadows, whether you're here for the scares, the stories, or just the sound of our charming voices echoing through the void. If you've got a haunted tale of your own, a bizarre headline you want us to dig into, or a location you think deserves the spotlight, send it our way. You'll find all of our links and contact info in the show notes. And don't forget to follow us on social media for behind-the-scenes updates, sneak peeks, and all things spooky. We're on Instagram at Beyond Upstate Paranormal, and on Facebook, just search Beyond Upstate Modern Paranormal Society. Looking to rock some haunted merch? Our Printify shop link is also in the show notes, so you can wear your ghostly pride wherever you roam. Until next time, keep your lights on, your EMF readers charged, and remember, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Stay spooky, friends.